Hey, real estate rockstars. This is Aaron Amuchastegui. I'm back today for an exciting episode. I hope it's going to be exciting. I've been chatting with Jill now for a few minutes, and I think we're going to have a bunch of fun and a bunch of good stuff for you today. Jill, where do you live? Where are you calling in from?
I sell real estate in New York City.
Cool. How long you been in New York?
I've been licensed since 2010, but in real estate since 2007.
Okay. Did you grow up around there?
New Jersey.
Okay. So you've just been there, and then so 2007 you started doing real estate. 2010 you got your license. 2010 was an interesting time because it was, at least on the West Coast where I was, it was mostly like foreclosure flips at that time that was selling. Was it the same in New York?
I mean, I just remember the news with just, what was happening financially in New York in the financial center. It was a lot of tough conversations, and it was similar to what you were experiencing on your coast.
Yeah. Yeah, and like so 2007, 2008 was kind of the peak of real estate, or maybe the end of the peak where stuff
Yeah.
was still a normal market where houses were selling. It started to slow down in '07, '08. In 2009 and 2010, 90% of the sales were a previous foreclosure that had been fixed and flipped or a bank-owned REO. So it's an interesting time to get your license. Why did you get your license? Why did you decide to get into real estate at that time?
Um I really liked what I was doing, and I wanted to immerse myself more into that world. And I guess sort of my nature is I'm not easily scared of things. So even though the news was, people leaving financial centers in New York City with their stuff in boxes and loading up town cars with their belongings and fleeing the city, people were walking away from deposits. I was still really excited, and I thought, what a good time to learn during this part of the cycle. How many people get to say they've started in one of the hardest markets?
It's actually a big advantage. So listeners, if you haven't like watched The Big Short is, there's so many scenes in that where there's like during the financial collapse of like all the foreclosures and things like that, and these offices getting emptied out, and people that were getting paid hundreds and hundreds of $1,000s a year instantly becoming unemployed and being unemployable. It was this whole industry of people. The industry kind of no longer existed for a long time after that. It was the same when the crash happened. I was a home builder. So we were like building houses. I was working for a home building company. I went to school for it. I grew up to do that. And then in one moment, home building became obsolete. Nobody built a house new for the next 4 or 5 years. And so it was instantly going like, what am I going to do? I got into foreclosure flipping at the same time. That was like the only game in town. Not many people started their career then, but it's almost an advantage of starting then is you didn't know what it was like when it was good.
That's very true. And when you were doing foreclosure flipping, you were able to sort of build a different skill set, right? So evolve, build out a separate skill set, and sort of maintain relevancy, which I think is so critical for this industry.
Yeah. I think that I've seen that today, meaning agents that just got started in the last 2 years seem to be doing really, really good.
Mhm.
Because they don't know how good it was or how easy it was. Here's an example. In 2020, if you held an open house, you'd get 100 leads and you'd get two or three buyers. So you'd hold an open house, you'd make 15 grand from it in 2020. Today, if you hold an open house, you may get three people that show up. So you have to hold 10 open houses to get the real lead. And then of those leads, 1 out of 10 actually buy. But the people that just started in the last couple of years, they didn't know it used to be easier. And so they're just doing it and they're doing this business and they're succeeding. And so I think that there's probably some stuff in your mindset and what you've done that could help people that are just getting started or remind the people that were around in 2019, 2020, 2021 when it was an easier business, a simpler business, just because there were higher volume and things like that. It's kind of remembering like changing that mindset. It's easier to come in with a new mindset than it is to change one. So it's been a challenge. So all right. So your career was then it started when it was crazy. How did
Mhm.
you get your first deal?
My first deal, sort of a unique, probably atypical. So
Yeah.
I was brought on site by a developer to lead on site sales. So my first sale was one of 100 because I was selling out a building. And it was also a tricky building in a tricky market, 2010 in a tricky neighborhood where we had higher than normal taxes. So, I was also really young. I remember I was giving showings in stilettos on a construction site. Like, I don't really know what the thinking was there.
Yeah.
Not so clever, but we figured a way through it.
Yeah. So the how did you get most of your clients your first 2 years of business?
So, first year of resale business, how did I get most of my clients? I went back through my sphere and I had meaningful coffees and genuinely was looking to reconnect with people in my sphere. And then if it came up in the conversation, what are you up to now? I would share, I'm a resale broker now. I've shifted from being on the developer side selling to now I'm working with individual buyers and sellers, also developers, builders, but I'm really looking to expand my book of business that is buyers and sellers. But I wouldn't shoehorn that into the conversation. It had to happen naturally. And slowly over time, I've built a book of business that way.
Yeah. I think that's a good tactic. I think it's a common tactic. Did you have, like, weekly goals of, "I'm gonna have 3 coffees this week or 1 coffee this week"? Like, were you intentionally doing that? Like, "Hey, I'm just gonna go talk to as many people as I can, and if it naturally comes up, I'm gonna tell them what I'm doing."
I was super intentional. And I would say my nature is that I don't do well when I have nothing on my calendar. So it was very exciting and still is very exciting for me to set meetings, to do that outreach, set the meetings, and connect with people. So at one point, it was 20 in-person meetings a week was a goal, which now I think sounds a little bit unreasonable of a
Mhm.
goal because that sounds like a lot of people, but I was doing it. So
Yeah.
I was enjoying it.
So if somebody wanted to copy that method,
Yeah,
how would they do it? Like, they would just
sure.
like, what's the way that they start scheduling 10 or 20 somethings a day to just to reconnect with old friends?
It always has to come from a place of genuine interest and it has to
Mhm.
be authentic. So people are scrolling on social media anyway, right? So while you're scrolling, um, take interest in someone else's life, right? Take note of what they're doing, reach out to that person and find a genuine connection. So so and so, I just saw that you were in Dubai, you were you know, doing something really cool. I've always wanted to do that. It was so cool to see you do that. I'd love to get a coffee and hear more about it in person.
Yeah. Cool. So I mean, I think that's a good point, right? Because it used to be go down your text contacts and text people, which I think is still good. But social media does become such a natural way to say, hey, this person just put themselves out there. Yeah, commenting back on their story. This looks awesome. Where was that? Oh, it was here. Oh, it'd be fun to catch up. Do you want to go grab coffee sometime?
Yeah.
And if you're just doing the social media anyway, and then you organize that a little bit, you have some conversations, and I think that that's a so cool. So that's a fun way to get clients. What about today? What do you do more listings, more buy side? What's your business like now?
I think I'm the rare agent that I love buy side.
Hmm.
In New York City, just seeing the different homes is such a treat for me. I think most brokers really want more listing side business, but I really love working on the buy side. And then I work with a lot of developers still. I joke with Ryan that I'm like his real estate fixer because when things get sticky, he throws me in the mix.
Yeah,
They told me the other day that they brought me into something to kick down doors. I didn't know what that meant. I don't know what that means, but um, I figure things out.
yeah. Kick down doors. I think that means to not get told no. If you get
There
told
you go.
no, then you're going to figure out a way to make it happen.
Well, thank you for explaining that to me because I said I don't know what that means, and then they didn't explain it to me. So
Yeah, maybe Ryan will thank me later for helping explain the adage he gave you. So on the buy side, you love doing buy side. How do you get buy side clients today?
how do I get buy side clients today? Such a great question. I would say more often than not, it's referral based. Um, and, referral through not only just my sphere, but what I would say are sort of business alliances. So, relationships I've developed, like wealth managers or architects. And those tend to be, for me, the most valuable connections because they know I'll deliver.
Yeah. That's smart, right? So you've just met people over time, and then you make sure when you talk to those, was that something that you built intentionally or happened accidentally? Like, did you go out to wealth managers and become friends with them and say, "Hey, by the way, like I would love to be your agent that you recommend when people are looking for houses," or did it naturally happen, or did you have a goal too of like, I want to get referral business from companies like this, and this?
So, it was intentional. And when folks were looping in their wealth managers to get transactions done, once the transaction was done and everything was satisfactory, I would reach back out to them, develop that relationship, have coffee, and at a certain point, you start to get business from developing those relationships. But it doesn't have to be a wealth manager. It could be sort of any business alliance you can think of could be a referral source.
Yeah. I think it's a great point, right? I think that the people that need, like right now, agents in general are, how do I get more clients? How do I get more listings? How do I get more buyers? How do I get more anything? And then how do I nurture and build those relationships? We've already talked about a couple of them. Like one way to get new clients on the buy side right now is just be intentional about having coffee, meeting up with people, doing fun stuff. They say the conversation always happens. What have you been up to? "Oh, I've been working so much. I was just helping a client show a house today. Oh, how does that work? I mean, apartment locators do the same thing. Oh, what'd you do? "Oh, I showed a client an apartment earlier. They go, well, how does that work? Oh, well, people hire me to go find apartments for them and things like that. And then also those referral clients, whether it's a yoga studio that you go to, a place you exercise, a coffee shop you go to, conversations happen, people are there. And the I think that more standard businesses probably take more creativity to get those referrals. Like how to be the yoga company's preferred agent, I don't know. Is it a sponsorship thing? Is it your name on the wall? Is it a sticker there? Or is it actually just that like you befriend the person that's like running the front desk and then somebody says they're buying a house, they go, "Oh, you should talk to Jill. I was just talking, she was just giving me advice on how to buy a house." So I like that as a strategy, as well. So you've been in real estate a long time.
Yeah, yeah.
What's something you know now you wish you would have known when you got started?
I still say this to myself, so maybe I still don't know it now, but I still tell myself not to ride the roller coaster. Don't go into the lows of the business. Don't go too high in the highs. Just try to stay even because the lows can be really low, and that's the present today, but it's going to be the past soon enough. And then again, the wins come and go just as quickly. So really sort of staying even and staying calm I feel is sort of like the key to longevity in this business. Um, do you agree with that?
Yeah. It's funny. Have you seen the TV show Landman? Has it been something you've
No.
watched? So it's a fascinating TV show, and I was rewatching it yesterday, and in the middle of it, it's this oil company,
Oh.
and one of the main stars in it says, he has this line, and he goes, "You need to remember our business is full of daily intense chaos with
Mhm.
brief moments of, like, incredible financial success."
Yeah.
Right? So he was, like, kinda saying, like, "This is the job you signed up for." Like, the roller coaster is the thing, and
Mhm.
then occasionally we win. I think that was one of the quotes that you said in one of your pre-interview stuff. Is like, "Calm is not a personality trait." Right? Like it's like the result of preparation, of who you are, of intentionally expecting like, hey, and it's really tough when you get started to stay calm. When we were counting commissions, we were like, hey, I have this one closing before the end of the month. I have this one closing before the end of the month. I have my mortgage is due on this day, and I need both those to close to do it. And something cancels. It would be really hard to tell that kid back then, stay calm. It's no big deal because it is. But the reality is, you have to stay calm. It just is the thing. A certain number of things are going to go wrong. A certain number of problems are going to happen. And being able to, I guess, with experience, we get more calm if we're intentional about the idea and we know this is a roller coaster. But I love that whole concept of like, don't ride the roller coaster.
Yeah.
Don't get super excited. Don't get super don't count the money before it comes in.
Oh,
Don't get
yeah.
super sad when it comes out. Just like do your day to day. And if you do that long enough, you stay calm and you prep, you're going to have those results.
Yeah, because you can't account for the way that your clients react to things or the way the deal unfolds. I had something recently where there was a seller who had I think really severe financial distress. And I sort of created I felt like a magician. I pulled a rabbit out of the hat with this deal. We were going to close before the end of the year and he really needed that to happen. And he hired an attorney that I had never worked with before and the attorney didn't let me see what I need to see. And so he hadn't removed language in the contract. And then the contract got signed and you know, I couldn't prevent it from happening because I wasn't in the loop. And so the buyer was allowed the right to delay the closing. And so the
Mm,
closing is happening end of this month. And the seller was rightfully so very upset.
totally.
Um, and and part of our job is to absorb that and then to sort of shake it off, you know? So, that's sort of an example of a low. I never like to have that sort of relationship with a client, but it happens sometimes. And it wasn't
Part of
personal, you know?
Yeah, part of the job is saving the deal. Part of the job is being the punching bag sometimes. Part of the job is sometimes, foregoing commission or paying for the home inspector. I saw somebody wrote a thing today, a friend of mine had made a post about he almost lost this like $40,000 commission over an $800 repair, right? And the seller's ready to cancel over it. The buyer's ready to cancel over it. And the agent had to finally go like, I'll just pay the $800 repair, and not because it's fair. And agents shouldn't have to do that, but like sometimes our job is solve it, and the agent can make a decision. Do I want to still close this deal and get my commission and move on to the next one, or do I want to go show them another house and start over? And because buyers and sellers are emotional beings, it's like big decisions, right? On the buy sides, big investors are a little different. Investors aren't necessarily emotional; they're just tactical. Um, but like buyers and sellers, a lot of times, especially emotional distress that they're having or financial stress, like they need this to close because, well, just like, hey, I need my mortgage paid next month. I don't know how I'm going to do it. Whatever. Emotional beings. So I think yes, one of our responsibilities as the people to keep the deal together is to not become emotional. Is
Right.
to like it has to be a widget, even though it's people and you care about them and it's not that you don't
Yes.
care, you're not emotionally, accepting how big of an impact this is, but not being the emotional being because everybody else is gonna be emotional already.
Everyone's emotional.
Yeah.
You have to be sort of like, what is it? Like a lightning rod, like absorb, bring that charge down to the ground without it
Yeah.
totally crushing your soul.
Yeah. It's like that's an example, another thing you had said before too, it's like the surprises create stress.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So that was a surprise. Hey, all of a sudden this is canceling. How did you let that happen? Hey, the attorney signed it and said, is it common to have attorneys read your contracts there instead of agents?
So in New York, it is an attorney, in New York City, it's an attorney heavy real estate market. And typically, the attorney I work with, I'm looped in all the way. So
Mhm.
I would review, the purchase agreement before it gets signed, just as a second set of eyes. I'm not an attorney, but I've been doing this long enough where I know where to look. And this was really quick moving. We had a quick turnaround on the signing, and they didn't give me the courtesy, and then all of a sudden it was signed and fully executed. Um,
Your attorney would know, like, hey, you wouldn't say yes to this, but it was a different attorney and he didn't know better. So do they not have standard forms out there?
it is standard, and in the standard agreement, there's the right to delay the closing as
Okay.
sort of a
So
standard
it's like a
thing.
different box got checked and then somebody else approved it before you got to.
Yeah, and it can get tricky. I've had deals, from contract signing to closing, in this kind of a market. That's the trickiest part of the deal. You have to shepherd the deal from signing to closing. I think a lot of agents either forget or the newer agents maybe were never trained on it. The biggest surprises for me happen between signing and closing.
Yeah. I've had I think new agents aren't necessarily trained on it. I think some agents there's some fairly new agents that have done lots of I wanna say fairly there's some newer agents, but they've been around a couple years that have done a significant amount of deals that I've had conversations with, and they're like, "No, once I get it signed, like, the lender tells us what to do."
Right.
right? Like, they don't have transaction they're like, "The lender will tell us at the home inspection, the lender will tell us this," or
Right.
the and they're not necessarily wrong, but if you're the liaison and you're telling the agent, like, you're like, usually, like, you're the agent first, and then sometimes you help them get a lender, or sometimes they call anybody else, but letting the lender run the deal for you or essentially run your client or tell your client, "No, you gotta get this done on the home inspection," compared to the agent, it's like a whole different
Oh,
deal.
and then in New York City, during, COVID, during the pandemic, I mean, there were like drive-by appraisals that were happening. Did
Yeah.
you guys have that?
We did. Yeah, where you're not even allowed to go in the house, like, sometimes they would FaceTime, sometimes they would get pictures from them.
I mean,
Weirdest time ever.
and the appraisals were coming back all over the place, and so then that was a time of big surprises. And how do you handle that?
I think for, like, normal prices for normal price point houses or average stuff or, "Hey, this is a neighborhood that 100 homes were built in by the same builder," I think drive-by appraisals are probably fine. But when you're talking high-end properties, which I imagine you get to see so much different stuff in New York, you could have 2 identical square foot units in the same building, and one can have a $500,000 in upgrades from a
Right.
special artist, whatever, and
Mhm.
one can be gutted in standard, and without seeing it there's just some houses you walk into that they're selling for 2 or 300 bucks more per square foot than another
Yeah.
house in the neighborhood,
Right.
but when you walk in, it's because of the feeling, the light you can see why. Essentially, it's
Right.
like I can't even put it into words, but you can walk into one and go, "Oh, yeah, this one, same size as the other one, I'd pay a lot more for this one," because it
Right.
just feels better, bigger, whatever, and yes, you can't get that from a drive-by appraisal.
Right. So in New York, that was happening. So that would be an example of something that's atypical but a surprise. And you really have to shepherd the deal and not let the transaction happen to you?
Yeah. So let's change direction a little bit. Like one of your strengths is kind of like uh, data optimization systems, things like that, right? Like, see, so the why don't you just talk about that for a second? So, like, what does that really mean when that's like one of your strengths and how you've been able to make your business essentially do more with less effort? I think, or do more with less time. How are you doing that process?
Yeah, I it's something that I really focus on trying to really capture the information, synthesize it, and then share that digestible information. Um, and sort of doing that through systems. Because high level that sounds so easy, but then when you try to get into execution of it, well, what does that look like? And it involves really loving the systems that you're using and knowing how to use them.
Yeah. So, what systems do you use? What are your most important systems in your business?
Sure. Yeah. Um, I really like my CRM. I know there are a lot of great CRMs out there, but once I sort of get how something works, I'm not looking to learn a whole new system. And so I have my prospecting systems. Once I prospect, I input that system into my CRM. Um, I have that CRM that sort of speaks with another system where it automates property value information.
Cool.
So I'm providing value,
Wh-
constantly.
What CRM
Um,
do you use?
I use Follow Up Boss.
Yeah. But that's the most common one.
Yeah.
It's definitely the most common one. They sponsored our podcast for years, and I mean, it got sold I think a year ago, but the
Yes.
CEO, the founder was from Austin here, and so it's always been very popular around here. But most people in our mastermind use it. There's a lot of new ones, and there's a lot of new technologies out there that are trying to integrate AI better. But Follow Up Boss has been the best one that's kind of having the best one because I'm not getting paid for this anymore either. But that's the most common one for real estate agents, let's say.
It
But
is.
you talked about you have a different system before it goes. So you do some sort of outbound or inbound. You do some sort of prospecting before it goes into Follow Up Boss. Is what it sounded
Right.
like.
So some of I'm a coach too. So some of the people I work with, they use Remine and
Yep.
they're able to prospect through Remine. We don't have that in New York City as an accurate. So we have, there's I sort of cobble together my own version of Remine, and then I take that information and I upload it into the CRM. Um, some people are able to use Lofty as a way to sort of, get big picture information on the property, the value, that can be packaged and sent out through a drip campaign.
So let's talk about that idea a little bit. So
Yeah,
Remine or PropStream does it, PropHawk does it. There's lots of
right.
different software out there where you can essentially find people. So it's like an idea to prospecting is find people that like have bought a house or have sold a house, right? Is that what you're talking about, or
The
the
idea is if you're looking for listing more listing business, which, most brokers I speak to or work with, that's what they're all looking to build. So,
Yep.
exactly what you're saying, you would use one of these platforms, you would find, um, someone who's purchased a home. It doesn't even have to be recently. It could be in the past 5 to 10 years, and you're adding value. You're reaching out, letting them know, uh, you know, perhaps what the value of their home could be today. Um,
And that's like what Lofty does, right? Like essentially you can load this stuff into a CRM and say, "Hey John, you don't know me, but I'm an agent. I think your house in your neighborhood might be worth 550, might be worth $1 million. If you want to get if you want to get a detailed CMA, let me know." Is it kind of stuff like that? That's like a common one I've seen.
is really successful, especially in this kind of a market where there's not a lot of inventory, and so there's not a lot of competition. And at a certain point, people are really curious what their home is worth. So you're adding value. It's low pressure. So that is a great way to prospect, in my experience.
Yeah. We're having a lot of luck right now with outbound, where we use some of those tools, we use some of those software tools to say who's got the most equity, who's owned their home for. There's a lot of different stats. You can think to yourself, like, who's the most likely to want to sell right now? Who has
Right.
the most equity? Who's lived there over 5 years? There's all sorts of software that has these lead scores that says, like, these guys are likely to refi, these guys are likely to sell, these guys had
Right.
a daughter graduate from high school and they're likely to down. There's lots of factors. So the technology out there to make these lists is pretty cool. But the lists themselves aren't as good as like what the outreach is, because the like one list might get a higher, you know, action rate, right? So a really defined list might get 5% success or 10% success, or you could have a bad list, but you'll still get 2 or 3% success. So it's all about like just getting a list, trying to get what it is, and then that outreach. But we're having a lot of luck with using some of those tools and saying, hey, I've got a cash buyer looking to buy a home in your neighborhood. Are you interested in selling? And the which is true. And then usually when we look at it and we do something where we say, "Oh, it looks like they owe 500 grand, it's worth a million. We'll make an offer for 700,000." But that offer usually says like, "We could buy it for 700,000 now, but it looks like you could probably get more if you sold it with an agent. Like, do you want us to introduce you to an agent?" Right? And so we've had a lot of luck with that, of people because they're first going, because it's like yeah, people want to know what their home is worth. So it's like, hey, buy it now number is 700, but we think you can actually get 900 if you wanted to market it properly and take 6 months to sell it. It's like giving people those options. And yeah, and a certain percentage bite for us, it's all about like volume, just like reaching out. Like, have you found a list that's better than others, or have you just seen like, just let the CRM do the thing?
So that's such a good question. With Lofty, which with what I've seen from clients, or Remind from what I've seen with clients, it's more about looking at specific markets or neighborhoods where you already have expertise that you can apply,
Yeah.
and making that outreach feel really genuine and authentic, and not sort of, you know, stilted, or there has to be some sort of human connection there. Um, so that's where I've seen the most success. I know there are also platforms that you can sort of export lists. I'm never really sure how scrubbed those lists are, you know?
Yeah. They're Yeah, and how often they get scrubbed. I don't know what the accuracy list is. There aren't I mean, they're definitely not 90%, they're definitely not 80% accurate, but there is a high level of accuracy, and it's tough to figure out what that really is. I like something you just said though, is it's like, because we look at stuff like who has the most equity, who does this. It's almost like you're doing a search based on property characteristics. So if your type of product is, I mean, what's your average price point of a deal that you do?
I would say I think it's 2.5.
Cool. So for somebody like you would say, "Hey, I do mostly condos around 2.5 million. So maybe what I need to target is condos and towers that are worth between 2 and 3 million bucks." And then, because then your outreach is like, "Hey, I'm Jill. I just sold, or I just represented a buyer on two houses, two condos in your neighborhood for this. I might have a couple backup, whatever it is." But you're saying you're filtering based on what your expertise is, because then your conversation can be more, instead of just saying like, "Hey, I got a cash offer for your house." You're focusing on like, what area do you know? You're not trying to reach out to $10 million condos or $500,000 condos. If your niche is 2.5, you're going to say like, "Hey, what do I have a high expertise in?" Then I can track it a little bit more on that. And so that's more like, yeah, that's like, it's like farming on your niche instead. I think that's smart, right? Because then it's and maybe you get a higher receptive rate on that as well, because you are able to tailor it. Where if we're sending out 10,000 emails to a bulk list, our tailoring is very cheap. It's, "Hi, Mr. First Name. Here is your house address. This, like, would
Right.
you like an offer for this?"
And and just to sort of give full context, so doing this since 2007, and when I say I've sold everything from $150,000 parking spaces to $50 million combinations, I've really seen it all. So to back up and say, where do I want to lean in and where do I want to focus? I think is sort of what you're saying. Like, where's your expertise? Where do you want to lean in? Where can you make like the most meaningful um, impact when you reach out to people?
Yeah. Yeah, where are you the most comfortable? Where are you the most knowledgeable? Where can you make the most impact? Like, and really, as a smart agent in today's business, I've heard people say like, "Hey, if your niche is this and somebody brings you the $250,000 parking space, you should tell them, 'No, but here's my friend who's an expert in that.' And if somebody brings you the $50 million listing, you should say, 'No, but here's my expert in that.'" I don't think that's real though. I mean, I think that's probably good in practice, but I think it's like, but who's really gonna say no to it? Like, I haven't found very many people that actually can stick with that. What do you think about that? Like, if somebody, because you know your niche, if somebody came to you and said, "Hey, here's something that's 50 miles from you, but it's a $20 million listing," would you say, "Yeah, I would do it," or would you refer to somebody on your team that, or somebody in your brokerage knows more?
I love that question. When I think of that question, I think of like bandwidth. Like, so so I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a coach, I'm a broker. Like, so where do I want to focus? How much time do I have in a day? And so if I had a team, I'd refer things I couldn't handle myself to a team. In fact, when I was a part of a team, that's what we did. Um, Today, if someone gave me something and I just didn't have the bandwidth for it, um, and even today, I had a conversation with a client that I adore, and I sort of said, what you need right now, like my schedule just like it's not going to suit you the way that I know how you operate. I know what you want and need, and I can't give you what you want and need right now. And they were okay with it. So for me, it's like less about the price point and more, I want to be 100% focused. I have something I'm working on in Brooklyn that's 60 homes. I have something I'm working on in Tribeca. It's 20 homes. So at what point do you just dilute yourself, right?
Yeah. It's a it's a really good point, and it's something that, like, I think people at the beginning, when people are hungry, we don't think about that at all, and as people get
Right.
bigger, you have to decide, like, so I own 7 different companies. The problem with owning 7 different companies is only one of them will grow each year. Like, I thought it was great to diversify, and then the diversification is probably the biggest reason that I haven't had one company reach $100 million valuation, right? Like, it was thinking it was great to be a part of this and great to be a part of this and great to be a part of this, but spreading myself too thin So because I say it and it sounds cool, but it's actually not cool. It's actually one of the things that's, again, that's kept one of those first companies from getting giant, or any one of them, right? It's like choosing a thing that you're good at and focusing on it, knowing when to give something away as a referral, knowing when to say no. Again, wife, family person, mom, knowing when to say like, no, I can't take the extra call. That's based in having a lot of maturity in your business, a lot of confidence in your business. And I think new agents, what Jill just talked about, that should be like one of your life vision goals, is that you actually build your business to a place where saying no to a money opportunity does not feel like a loss. Because I know plenty of people that can't imagine that right now. And they're going to say yes when they shouldn't. And so then they underserve their client, or they don't perform, or maybe they perform, maybe they can do it all, but they're also like stressed and they're pulling their hair out. And so there is this interesting balance of that. I think it's a great point of what you just said. And I think it's like brave and real to say that, to go like, no, I turned down a client today because I realized I couldn't do what they wanted to do. And there's probably a big time in business of like, when do I take this as a listing? Or when do I buy this as an investment property? Or when do I refer it? Or when do I not even refer it? Or when do I tell the person like, no, you're never going to be able to sell that place for 2 million bucks. You owe 3 million on it. You're never going to be able to sell it for 3 million. Like you shouldn't waste 6 months of like letting this other agent tell you you should do something else instead. So that's got to be hard. The so you work at Sirhan, right?
Yes.
So you're in New York working at Sirhan. That is a name that a lot of people are going to recognize. What's
Yes.
that like?
Sure. I was actually just going to say, one of, that conversation I had was really difficult. The client said to me, I hear it in your voice. This is not easy for you to say this to me, which I think was meaningful. But what I heard in my head, which goes to your question, the co-founder of Sirhan and I had a conversation recently, and he was like, Jill, what you're talking to me about is the business you're taking today. You want to be certain that you're creating the life for the person 5 years from now. And I was like, whoa, that blew my mind. Exactly. I want to make sure that decisions that I make today are creating this life for myself and my family 5 years from now. And that's sort of what we're talking about right now is, yes, it's going to be hard to say no to the rental listing today for a client that I adore, or the sell side listing, or the buyer who, but diluting yourself is not going to create the version of yourself in 5 years from now that you like or
Yeah.
want.
Yeah. Yeah. The like, who do I want to be in 5 years? How do I want it to be in 5 years? How long have you been part of the current company?
It's over a year and a half. I've known Ryan for a very long time. When I was on the development side, I hired him to sell for me.
Very cool.
So we've known each
Yeah.
other for a while.
Yeah, that's back in those early times. We had Ryan on the podcast many years ago. I want to say it was like 2018, 2019. He's came and spoke at some of our Go Abundance mastermind events and stuff like that. So it's got to be New York has to be a wild place. And I think and we have some listeners from New York, and I've interviewed several different brokers in New York. I remember getting to interview one that he had a listing for like a 40 million. I want to say it was 30 or 40 million. It was the top floor of this giant tower that's out there. And it was like totally empty. And so the listing he showed me was all these pictures of like renderings of like how you might make it the Batman Tower. And I
Mm,
had so many listeners and people that couldn't comprehend somebody paying $30 million for like a shell that was but it was such a like but for people in New York, it's a prestigious building. It's the top, whatever, so many floors and things like that. It's just some really fun and interesting stories that come out of there. So you've had a fun, interesting career, and I think you've got to give us some different perspectives today on success. If you were going to give listeners kind of one more piece of advice about anything, life, real estate, anything, what do you think it would be?
If you can't do it calm, don't do it.
Yeah.
If you can't,
If you
if you
can't,
can't do it,
yeah, that's what we started the podcast with,
yeah,
right? We started the podcast with that this business is full of chaos.
yeah,
but that's what we signed up for. But it's also full of like these highs and lows, and it's full of these moments of like you get to change people's lives. You get to be part of something that is really, really special for people. They will remember you forever if you do your job right. If you do your job wrong, they'll remember you forever too. I tell you what, like agents, buyers and sellers will remember. So if you can't do it calm, don't do it. This was a great fun interview. I know we had pages and pages of notes of more things
Yeah.
we could have chatted about today, right? But we talked about how you started in the real estate business. We talked about how to get buyer leads and how you're unique in the sense that even though you've been in the business for a long time, you still like focusing on that business.
Mhm.
I know that if we had more time, we could go into how you set up some of those CRMs and how you set up
Yeah.
those integrations and like all the details and stuff behind it. I'm sure my listeners are going to want to reach out to you some more. So whether it's, so what's the best way that if somebody has questions about what you're doing, if they want advice, if they want to send a referral up to New York, what's the best way people can find you?
Yeah, my email is just my first name, Jill at Sirhant, or you can find me on Instagram and send me a DM.
Cool. Well, I found you on Instagram yesterday, Jill. So I'm sure we're going to get to communicate on there quite a bit. Jill at Serhant, SERHANT.com. If you've got stuff for Jill. And what's the thing you're most excited about working on right now? What are you going to be doing over the next year?
I'm really excited about the new development pipeline we're working on, the uh, buildings that we're in pre-development right now, working with the architects and the designers. It's been a lot of fun for me.
Cool. You briefly mentioned that you do coaching. What kind of coaching you do?
Yes. I'm a coaching at Sell It, and I work with other brokers to help them build their business and scale their team.
Yeah. So the specialty is it's more like you're looking at brokers and you're going to coach them on the business, not how to do transactions, but the business itself and how to grow their business,
Yeah.
how to hire more agents, how to get more agents,
Yeah.
manage more agents type thing.
Yeah. I say a lot, are the right butts in the right seats? That's what I say a lot.
Yeah. It's a good culture question. That's like the one, I mean, your one thing was if you can't do it calm, don't do it. I think my one thing is always like the people that are in the room are way more important than what we're working on. Because I have all the different companies and all the different businesses, and we have good days and bad days and things. And it all comes down to when the rough times have been the roughest, it's because I've got the wrong people that can't handle it, that do things improperly, the wrong partnerships, whatever. And when I have the right ones, I can be facing, a dragon fire right down the gut, and it doesn't matter, right? So that was a super fun conversation. Well, rock stars, you heard it. If you want to talk to Jill more about coaching or anything, or get more advice on what she's doing, or just get to reach out and see some of the pictures of the projects and stuff that she's been working, you can find her on Instagram. So it's Jill. Last name is Preshel. So I think that's a pretty unique last name. So I think if we type that in, we're going to find an Instagram pretty easy out there. Listeners, if you want to talk to me some more, Instagram is always my favorite way to chat with people. I have a really unique last name too. So if you go Aaron, Aaron, and you just type AM, it's probably going to autofill the rest of my last name because that algorithm does pretty good if you're also into real estate. So you can find me at Aaron Amuchastegui on Instagram. Our big mastermind, by the time this podcast comes out, our big mastermind is just 2 weeks away out in Austin. We are pretty much sold out. We're finalizing all the last of our people that are going to be speaking. And for those of you that are listening that signed up and I'm going to meet you for the first time, I cannot wait to meet you in person. And, it's going to be a really, really fun year. Jill, thanks so much for coming on the show today and sharing your advice with the listeners.
Thank you so much for having me.
Real estate rock stars, thanks for listening.